Well, nothing's ever easy now, is it? So I was getting ready to put this back in the case so that we can test it. You really have to put this in the case and have all the shielding around it and everything and have the antennas connected to really verify if the thing is properly aligned or not. You really don't want to attempt an alignment outside the case like this, because as soon as you put it away into the case, it changes everything. And I noticed that, so I have the tuner turned all the way to the right. And you can see this pointer should be clear over about to here. It should actually travel almost between these two screws. It should go from one end of this bar to the other. And you can see over here that the tuning gang is all the way open. Now you would think that since this is off center here, it's going to run off the end. But if I turn this all the way, and you can watch the tuning gang close up, there it is, it's fully closed, and that's all the further it goes. And you can see it only moved about that much. Something is absolutely not right. And the more I look at this, the more I see the actual, what's going on here. There's a screw missing right here, if you notice. I believe this thing was restrung, or somebody tried to work with the string. The receiver itself was not worked on. There was no circuitry worked on. That doesn't even look like it was taken apart. But this front looks like it was taken apart. This might be the reason that the owner got this, and it was in such good shape. Somebody was attempting to repair the tuning dial and did something wrong. So we're going to have to take this apart and look a little closer. Unfortunately, the instructions with this is all you get. And when I look at this, it looks pretty close to what this is right here. So it's a mystery. I don't know why this string is not traveling as far as it should. So I'm going to take this grill off, and I'm going to look behind here and see if I can figure out what the heck is causing this problem. And mystery solved. So this was tied together and kind of repaired once. So let's first look at what we have here. So I took this apart. I was looking at this, and you can see the kink right here in the rope, but you can see already where this broke. And this just happened to me. It actually goes down here. But more importantly, this was repaired, and it was repaired totally incorrectly. The reason it doesn't work is because this kind of uses, I don't know, would you call it a cantilever or something? I'm not sure. But if you look, 3 separate dial cords are used. So you have number 1, which is this one. There's these 2 little turnbuckles. They're like little eyelets with little wheels on them, you can see, and they kind of free float in midair. And so you have your first wire that goes from this spring, and it ravels around here and goes over to this one, and it ties off right here. Then you have the second one that goes around the pulley down here, the knob. It attaches here as well, comes around, goes around here, comes around here, and goes to another one of those little things. Then you have a third string that actually ties to this, what they're calling the lance. And I was wondering about that because I saw it here. And if I show you, you can see that little lance right here. There it is. And that lance is actually there as a tie-off point, so that when you move these two a little bit back and forth, it pulls this third string a lot further, giving it that full length of travel. So without the correct parts, there's no way that we can get this thing to track on the dial correctly, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to tell the owner this. and let them know that there's actually a problem, that somebody got in here and did a hack job. So I've been studying this for a little bit, and I slept on it for a day. And if you really look closely at this thing, they're showing just like a little eyelet right here that the string ties to here. Then there's a little post up here with a little catch on the top. And this center string kind of wraps around it, goes over here, wraps around it, and goes back and ties together on that little piece there that's fixed on the frame, the chassis. So we need these, and I have no idea where to find them. So I am going to make them, or at least I'm going to try to make them, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take one of these little eyelets, these little terminals. I'm going to cut this plastic off, so it's just a metal piece. I'm going to put my string on this end. Then I have these little nylon bushings, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in my vise, and I'm going to take my little hand hacksaw here, and I'm going to just slice it, and I'm going to make two very thin little rings out of this. And then I'm going to take those rings and I'm going to sandwich them in between two washers, kind of like so, only thinner. And then I'm going to take a little nut like this. I'm going to nut it to this. And I'm going to make a pair of those. Then I am going to attempt to connect this. If you see this video, it means that I was successful. If you don't see any video, you'll know that I've gone insane, because I really dread stringing a dial cord, and this is dreading stringing a dial cord on steroids. So wish me luck. Well, the deed is done, and they want you to take 3 lengths of dial string, and they want an 18 and an 1/8 inch, 19 and 5/8, and 12 inch, and it says above are approximate lengths. So basically you have to guess. Isn't that lovely? So after completely maddening experience of trying to do this, there's one end, and you can see the capacitor there. I don't know how I did it, but it's working. So let's turn it around and look at it. And if this string breaks, I can tell you right now, as we do at work, not it. All right, we're all together, and this thing's working very well. So let me show you a little trick that I'm going to use. Instead of directly connecting an outside antenna to this, all I'm doing is I'm taking a little loop of wire that I made, and I just connected it through some clips here to the coil to my antenna lead, which goes over and goes to my outside 43-foot vertical antenna. So I don't even have anything connected to here. I'm just capacitively coupling this coil to this antenna. And yes, on this radio, the little hinges for the front cover are actually conductors to the antenna, and there's an actual loop antenna inside this cover flap. So this actually acts as an antenna. So let me demonstrate that. I'll turn the volume up. You can hear that. And if I move this away, nothing. So there you go. So that's how we're just going to use an antenna here to kind of, so we have something, because we're down in the basement and bottom of a hill. So let's just see how this thing's working.
That best fit me and my style. Hate to say I told you so, but I told you so.
4 million unnecessary emails are sent to me.
Let me turn the microphone around here. Okay, here we go.
.com is that website. Take a look on
soft tissue more prevalent in children than in adults. More than 6,000 people lose their lives to sarcoma.
And here's our tone controls.
Treatment options for sarcoma are limited, and new therapies are desperately needed. More research and increased awareness is necessary to find a cure for a cancer that you probably didn't even know existed until now. Through awareness, advocacy, and research, the Sarcoma Foundation of America is determined.
Again, it's still whether the better.
until they try to $50 cash.
Well, just flicking some debris off the donut, right?
So you get the idea. This radio's working perfectly. Now, if you notice, we didn't really have to do an alignment on this. Now, why is that? I only touched up the IF coil. Well, there's a reason for that, and that is that if you notice, none of the capacitors and we didn't disturb anything in the RF section of this receiver. So nothing was moved. None of those little coils were moved. They were still factory aligned, and you can see that they very rarely drift unless something goes wrong with one of the mica capacitors or something like that, or if you mess around with the lead dressing. So there you go. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to pick up anything on shortwave. It is morning time right now, so we might get something, but where I'm located, and really there's not a whole lot on shortwave these days, but we'll see what we can get. Okay, we're just coupling this up same way. I don't even have the antenna extended. This is the shortwave antenna here. Hope you can hear me. I have the microphone the other direction. And you can see I'm on around the 50 meter band. And it's picking up. Not going to get anything here. Too much noise. A little bit there on a 25 meter band. Nothing here. There you go. So shortwave has been kind of lousy the last for the last few months, I would say, or weeks anyway. And so you can't really expect a whole lot, but as you can see, at least it is working, and everything's working perfectly. I can inject my own signals from my signal generator to test it, and it is all tracking very well, and it's very sensitive. So I'm going to do one last thing before we wrap up this video. I'll go over and kind of recap the things that we found and what we did on this. Okay, first of all, if you recall, we replaced this selenium rectifier, and we showed a little test that we used to be able to check these. And although it tested as a diode and it did work, it was getting a little bit warmer than it should. And what that means is after it operates for a while, the voltage will start to go soft on you. So in other words, the voltage will drop because the resistance on this will increase as it heats up. So that's how these fail and they wear out. So whenever you get these, it's usually a good idea to replace them. Some people don't, and they get away with it, and they last a really long time. But, you know, while you're in there, you see what I did. Just replaced it with a silicon diode and a little suitable dropping resistor, and it'll be fine. Second of all, the main problem that was causing this radio not to work was all these capacitors. And you know, it seems like every video that everybody ever does on these radios, the capacitors always seem to be at least part of the culprit. Because, again, these wear out, especially these paper, wax and paper and foil capacitors like this. Even these bumblebees, which are notorious for failing. So, if we just take a quick look, and yeah, I know there's other testing things, the Carlson tester and all these other things, but just using the old an old capacitor checker like this, it's very easy to tell. This was the across the line capacitor, and you can see how it's got like an oil coating on the outside, like it's wet looking. This capacitor was actually leaking. And if you look here, as I increase the voltage, by the time I hit about 100 volts, it's already leaking pretty badly. See, this eye should be all the way open. And remember, this capacitor was across the AC mains. And of course, your peak voltage on 125 volt mains is going to be upwards of 170 volts. So even at 100 volts, this is leaking pretty badly. And what will happen is that resistance that is in here because of its failure mode, that resistance will convert to heat, and that heat will compound the problem until finally these things literally will explode. That's why sometimes people call these bumble bombs. But if we go down here and look at these, every single one of these capacitors had leakage, and every single one of these capacitors read a little bit higher than they actually, or almost double what they're spec'd at. So for instance, it would be a 0.047 microfarad capacitor. This one was reading somewhere around 0.7 microfarads, or 0.07 microfarads, so almost double. So anyway, we replaced the capacitors and we checked the IF alignment. We replaced this, but the biggest problem of all was that horrible dial string problem where we had to fabricate our own little dial string assembly out of those little eyelets. So other than that, this turned out to be a beautiful little radio. It's very sensitive because it has an RF front end RF amplifier on it, and I'm really pleased. I couldn't be happier. So we're going to give this back to the owner. And as always, I wish you all peace, joy, happiness, and good health in your lives. And I will be back soon. I have a very interesting project coming up. And we'll be looking, and it might be a couple parts because it may be quite a challenge. We'll see. Anyway, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.